created a model where we would buy, we'd look at the spread between what it should be doing and what it is. And if that meant that spread, I could close off that spread through operations, I could refinance, get my money back, and redeploy it. That allowed me to quickly build a firm worth over $100 million without any investors.
$100 million without any investors?
Yes. And then 5 years ago, we started taking on investors.
Okay, that makes more sense. And that makes a lot of sense. But either way, it's an impressive number. I'm just saying, $100 million without any investors is an impressive number by itself. Because to me, with having talked to and seen and interacted with a variety of fund managers and GPs, being able to say, I built it myself to $100 million and then I opened to investors speaks of a depth of experience. I'm going to say this, it's judgmental. Are you ready? That I think is lacking in some of the newer investors in this last 7-10 years.
Over 80% of all funds in storage came after 2018. Over 80%.
You understand, the field is storage is compounded. Storage is newer in its popularity. There are people professionalizing it. There are a lot of newer players in the field, like you said. And since 2012, there are a lot of people who've only seen a generally upward-facing market. And they have no experience in a downward-facing market. And normally I'm not judgmental, but as a passive investor, I want somebody whose backside has been in the sling. I am Christina Suter, and this is the Real Estate Breakthrough Show, where we talk about the reality of real estate, the mindset you need in order to face the reality of what it is, and tips and tricks to get you moving forward in investing. I am your host, Christina Suter. Hey you, this is Christina Suter on Real Estate Breakthrough. I have AJ Osborne with me. He is Cedar Creek Capital. And honestly, guys, I like to introduce just a little bit why I've invited people onto my show. I invited AJ, honestly, because of his wife. I'm just saying. AJ may or may not know this, but really it was your wife. I'm sorry. She sold me on who she is, who you guys are as a couple, and the way that you guys try to partake in this world as human beings, right? And that to me speaks so much more. After having invested for 35 years, I've seen a variety of people, a variety of characters, and a variety of levels of integrity. And I've gotten to the point where I'm like, I only want to play with people who are looking to contribute to the planet and create something greater than themselves. And your wife nailed it. The other thing that nailed it was my conversation with you about bears. I know, right? Completely weird. You never know what people are going to relate to, right? So actually, let me hijack for a minute. Why don't you have the conversation about bears? Because I don't think most people know about bears.
Yeah, I love bears. I'm from Idaho, and I'm a big wilderness guy, and so I think the discussion was even revolving around like Yellowstone, things like that. But bears have ginormous territories. They roam for, huge areas, states, everything else, and so they actually get trapped, and they become like you have like environmental islands, and that's what happens with like Yellowstone. They're actually trapped because of the freeway system and everything that goes around it. They don't want to cross over. And that's really bad because then you don't get genetic diversity. And the population, for example, in Yellowstone is not sustainable. So it is not a pure ecosystem thing like that. They actually need to travel out to go find mates, because if they don't, the population will start to deliver too many females, not enough males, until they eventually actually go extinct. So these bears will travel vast amounts. They'll go through Canada, down through the United States. They are roamers. And so these big bears, they are not exclusive to individual locations, and they take up huge territories as they roam. And they're just incredible creatures.
Okay, there's something else in there. You're also supporting a project of some kind?
Yes. So I'm a big supporter of the Yellowstone to Yukon. Anybody that's ever heard of it knows that I'm a huge believer in this. Well, all they do is they try to connect all of these islands, so to speak, which are, like it can be a park or a territory. So they build like road bridges. They actually track the animals, and they find out that they go through certain spots. So just like humans do, we go through certain ways, like bears and other creatures, they go through certain valleys and certain things to cross over. So they actually are making connectors to the different ecosystems so that they can create a way for the bears to go from space to space, and they work in tandem with the people that live there. And so they work in tandem, hand in hand with the ranchers and farmers, things like that. And I love that. They're not there to tell people what to do, kick people out. That, in fact, it's the opposite. They're there to help them and enhance their lands and everything else. And it's the perfect way to go about it. So it's a great organization.
Thank you for letting me have you do that first. I appreciate it. I didn't warn him at all that we were going to go there. As a matter of fact, I wasn't planning on going there until I was like introducing you and going, here's what stood out to me. Because, we're human beings, right? Real estate is about people, and the people that we invest with make or breaks our deals. And it seems super weird, but one of the questions I always ask people, and I'll ask you this question later in the show, is tell me about a deal that went wrong. Because if you can't tell me about a deal that went wrong, then how do I know who you are? I understand your marketing and I get your branding, but who are you? And that Bears thing told me a little bit about who are you? Because you want to know, as a passive investor, which is one of my primary activities, is I want to know who am I investing with? Who's going to be holding my money? I'm giving them $100,000, $250,000. What are they going to do about it? Right? So, all right, we'll go back to the beginning. The beginning is, why don't you bottom line your history and just what it is that Cedar Creek Capital does?
Yeah, so I am Cedar Creek Capital, first of all, is a real estate private equity firm, just meaning we just raise capital through funds as well as syndications one-off. But we do it under the focus of self-storage. So I own, operate, manage, develop, convert buildings into storage. I've been doing it for 20 years. I wrote the 2 best-selling books in our industry. I have the largest podcast and platform in our industry on self-storage. I own multiple vertically integrated firm, but I also own outside software, data collections. We started we were founding members of the largest co-op in our industry, been very involved in this industry over the last 20 years, and we've seen it go through dramatic changes. So that in its essence is what Cedar Creek Capital and what we do. I've owned lots of businesses. I still own lots of businesses and lots of different sectors, things like that. But that is my primary focus, is the self-storage. That's how everybody knows me. That's what I do. And that's where all my time is really put.
And I love the consistency of the 20 years. 20 years in that, like, I've 35 years residential. Single family, multifamily, multiple different states, multiple different ways, hard money loans, seller financing, flipping, condo conversion, multifamily, fourplexes, single families, long-term rentals, midterm rentals. Like, I've kind of played in that area. Those are all things that I've done, but it's all residential.
Yes, absolutely. It's storage is just what we do. I don't do other things, office building. No, I tell people, they're like, oh, you invest in commercial real estate. And I go, no, I have a self-storage business. It is different. Okay. Tell me a little bit, though, about what it is that you feel like in your history prepared you to be really successful in this particular area. I mean, other than you're a cool dude, and we know that. But other than that, of course.
Let's get more specific,
So there's a lot of things that I think happened to me and who I am that made me successful in this industry. And I think that this is actually a really good question, an important question, because there's a reason why I choose this asset class and this industry and why I can be successful in it, where in others I may not have been and couldn't have been. And this is true for everyone. And I'm a big believer in this. And one of the things that was big, I was in group medical benefits sales. We had a brokerage firm. We worked with companies to look at their self-funded dollars and managing claims dollars. So we represented companies in trying to maximize the benefits and optimizing the cost and lowering the risk. I looked and worked with businesses all over the place, hundreds of businesses and companies. And I loved business, economics, that stuff. I did not like real estate investing. I was actually anti it. So, but one of the problems with our job is the individual company in our firm that we owned and operated was that it was essentially, we did not own the revenue because we were paid consulting fees, right, off of the commissions from the firms or the businesses we worked with. This became what I called the treadmill. As in, we don't own the revenue. The revenue, you have mergers, acquisitions, competition, everything, it changes, right? So our revenue, because it's derived from somebody else's, we don't own it, changes all the time. And that means we always have to be moving just to keep up. And we do not have control over those things. And that is a scary spot to be in when your revenue fluctuates a lot and you don't actually have control over it. This is like a job, as in you have a W-2, you don't have control over that source. You can get laid off, you can do that, which I was. You're fired from clients because, once again, reasons that may not even have anything to do with you. It just, we had lots of them. They turn through. That's how it works. So with that said, we looked at a way to diversify our income, and we wanted something that had consistent cash flow. We were taxed at the highest rate, 50%. So every time I invested $1, I actually had to make $2 to invest that $1. So for me to break even, I had to double my investment. Most people don't think about that. They're like, oh, I have $50,000. If I make $100,000, I doubled my money. And I'm like, well, how much did you lose in taxes? You earn the $50,000, right? Previous. So this was a huge thing where I looked at it and I'm like, you can never get ahead. And this is something Warren Buffett taught a lot. Hence the reason why he was in insurance companies where he owned the company and could use the float tax-free, get higher yields and returns. And so I wanted and needed something like that. Real estate was the obvious answer because you get tax benefits, right? But I didn't like real estate. And the reason I didn't like real estate is because people said, you buy it and it's worth more. And I asked how, and they said, there's this thing that's like invisible, but it's magical and it's a hand and it just makes everything worth more. And I was like, I hate that so much because I'm like, how do I build a business off that? How do I make it predictable? This is why I loved storage, because when we looked at storage, it is real estate. We get all the benefits, everything else, but it is a business. So I talk about it.
The business aspect of
like
it.
the
You could
business
control
aspect.
it. You could market it. You could
I
garner,
can build the revenue,
garner
change the
clients.
revenue. I have control over these things, which means I can affect the value. So I can buy it and I can change the value whether the market changes. So I looked at it and said, this isn't a real estate asset. It's a business in my mind. So we started buying underperforming businesses or real estate assets, turning them around. We did marketing, revenue management. We added on products, all of these kind of things. And I loved that about it. And so for me, I was like, I got the best of both worlds. I got to affect the revenue. I got to change the value through efforts, know-how, and be in more control. And I also got the real estate part of it where values rise and you get the tax benefits, the security, the consistency of revenue, all of that kind of stuff.
And
And
doesn't
so that's
disappear.
why.
The building doesn't disappear, right?
Doesn't
The
disappear.
advantage of real estate.
So
That's
my
so funny.
past helped me with that. My past understanding businesses and consulting, all that, because I was all cash based, looked at that. So when I went into storage, we didn't look at it as a real estate. I looked at it on the revenue side and said, how do I increase this revenue? That's it. How does this net income increase? I'm used to affecting revenue. And so when we went in, we created a model where we would buy, we'd look at the spread between what it should be doing and what it is. And if that meant that spread, I could close off that spread through operations. I could refinance, get my money back, and redeploy it. That allowed me to quickly build a firm worth over $100 million without any investors. And then
$100
5
million
years ago,
without any investors.
yes. And then 5 years ago, we started taking on investors.
Okay, that makes more sense. And that makes a lot of sense. But either way, it's an impressive number. I'm just saying. $100 million without any investors is an impressive number by itself. Because to me, with having talked to and seen and interacted with a variety of fund managers and GPs, being able to say, I built it myself to $100 million and then I opened to investors speaks of a depth of experience that, I'm going to say this, it's judgmental. Are you ready? That I think is lacking in some of the newer investors in this last 7-10 years, right?
Over 80% of all funds in storage came after 2018. Over 80%.
You understand the field is storage in this is, to me, it's compounded. Storage is newer in its popularity. There are people professionalizing it. There are a lot of newer players in the field, like you said. And since 2012, there are a lot of people who've only seen a generally upward facing market. and they have no experience in a downward facing market. And normally I'm not judgmental, but as a passive investor, I want somebody whose backside has been in the sling. I've seen a couple cycles, and I've lost money in cycles, and I've gained money in appreciating markets as both an active investor in my own units and as a passive investor. And we're again seeing as limited partnership, we're again seeing deals that are starting to fail. But when so that's one is love the depth of experience, love how you've actually spent the time to actually use your own capital to gain your actual experience on your own dime, and now you're taking other people's capital. And the third piece is, out of all my interviews, you're one of the few people, and I've done over 700 podcasts total between my two, and I've done like 200 on this one. You're the only one who's ever gone, yeah, I went into it for the business. Oh, by the way, it's attached to real estate. And I'm like, okay, that's a new model. And it makes perfect sense, right? When you describe it the way you describe it, which is I wanted to buy a business model I had control over. And by the way, that business happens to be securitized by something solid called real estate versus accounts that disappear, right? And it makes sense because storage accounts disappear and then you get new accounts, right? So it's almost like managing accounts. So that makes perfect sense to me. That's a good story. I'm just telling you. And I don't know how hard I am to impress, but I'm impressed with that story. So there you go. But so I love that what in your personal history helped to prepare you. So what do you feel like now that I've said all this, is there anything we've missed in the secret sauce of your company? Why would limited partners want to invest in your company other than the obvious mind-blowing of like, no, we were successful long before you guys ever showed up?
Yeah. I often use the words, most people start real estate companies and firms so they can get rich with investors' money. Our investors get rich off of ours because all our companies and everything were my capital, our capital. It took us and built it. I view it as there's another thing I think that's really important on this is the driver, the reason it I think is a big reason because we did not have investors' money. There's a few things that were really important. I had to get my capital back quick. And also I couldn't lose money because I didn't have very much of it. So you couldn't just go get more of it from the investors. So that meant we had to be long-term thinkers in risk. So we would put out things like our interest rates, everything else like that. We thought in 10 plus years. Liabilities, we had to lock in forever because I don't know what will happen in the short term of a market. Now, the execution though, that is short term, and that's where we want to execute and get the benefit of it. And so the spread benefited us massively during the Great Recession, where we had no defaults, we didn't lose any money or anything else, and we came out of it and we bought, continued obviously buying, and we just bought through 2008, 9, 10, 11. We just stacked up. We just kept buying and buying and buying. And this has been something that we had because we were a business. We thought ourselves. Nobody else thought of this as a business at all, just us. But we said liabilities locked in over the long term. I can't deal. We're going to do actions in the short term to increase the income. And then as we kept going with this, obviously things got cheaper. The valuations changed. We could affect that revenue. We started investing in the business of storage, meaning that we started putting our capital, not just in the assets, we started building out software systems, all this stuff to do what? Yield higher returns on our capital. So we were investing in the business part, not the assets, to say, how can we do things differently that will yield us higher returns, find better customers, higher paying ones. We can do dynamic pricing. We can do like self-funded on insurance where we get 80% of the premium back to us because that all goes to the bottom line. So when you think about it like that, you also invest your dollars differently. Well, that all of a sudden made it so we were very successful at turning these things around and getting really high yields because we were putting our efforts into that in the short term. This is a thing though I've always had this mentality where I do not expect the market to make me, but I always expect it to kill me. And so we act like that every single day. When I buy an asset, I look at it and say, how's the market going to kill me on this? And then I don't expect it to make me. So what do I need to do to make this thing?
Okay, we're back to the mountain man. I am sorry, but that is completely mountain man. this environment, I'm not expecting the environment to help me. It might want to kill me. So I'm going to be prepared, right?
It's going to kill me. And so even with the interest rates rising, things like that, we're like, yeah, anything came due until like 2030. Why? Because we expected that. And people are like, well, we would have never known that interest rates would have risen. I'm like, of course, nobody would have known. But you should have expected it all the time because you don't know. So the fact that you don't know what interest rates will do, and that to me is the exact reason that you protect it, not the reason to not protect it. That doesn't make sense to me. So we act in a way where we go the long-term value creation. We have to execute on plans, and I don't know what. We do not. We have assets that we bought where we're like, we're not going to give we're going to halt distributions deposit because we don't know what the future looks like. And we don't know where demand will be. So we are very long-term value-based creators. I would rather have a value that we're going to get, because I have very high expectations of my assets' performances. So I know that I'm like, if we're going to get this, I could be off a year or two. That's fine. I could be off 3 years. That's fine, as long as it happens. What I can't do is say, oh, that asset just didn't work out. Oops, we lost the money. That is not okay to me. I have no no. So for me, we will always hold off the short term for the long term, because I've had to do that through recessions. And I've seen people that didn't have the ability to do that and they failed. So we're very conservative, long-term value-based investors. We just don't depend on the market, us to make it, and we expect the market to kill us.
Okay, so let's keep talking market for a minute. I know I love your conversation with the market, because the market really is, and I always like to say, in 2006 and 7, I didn't get a memo from the market telling me where it was going to go, right? And so I lost over 2/3 millions of dollars worth of asset values in that particular cycle. And it made me really sensitive to the concept that all ships rise and fall on the market. I am a peon in comparison. It doesn't care about my millions. It doesn't give a crap. It doesn't care about us at all. Right? We're back to what I call mountain man, right? It's like mountain gal, right? It does not care about me. I need to be in relationship to the economy, period, regardless of what my asset class is and regardless of how big or small player I am. If you fight it, you will lose. Period. That is what I learned. So what is your industry facing? Because not only are there market specific effects, but there are also industry specific effects. What is your industry facing, and what do you think about the economics that's going to be coming around the corner here?
So there's a few things. The last 2-3 years has been rough in commercial real estate, every real estate, right? General. Self-storage, I think it was really rough. And the reason it was really rough is because the housing market fuels a lot of storage. Something like 45% of our customers come in because they're moving. So the housing market, if it does good or bad, that's not nearly as important to where if it doesn't do anything at all. So when the housing market stalled, as installed in transactions, that hurt self-storage. Even if somebody was losing their house and they had to move, self-storage benefits from that. Movement benefits. Those are our drivers. So the high interest rates killed. I focus everything on intrinsic and extrinsic value. We talk about what I can do versus the market. Intrinsic is what I can do. Extrinsic is the price between buyers and sellers. So the value of a thing, because it's sold at a price, that is the market's price. That's an extrinsic value. Two people decide to pay and they bought it, right? Inside would be whatever that thing made me. That's it. If it makes $100,000, that's its value, right? So the extrinsic, when we look at it, interest rates hit that extrinsic value hard. I love that, because what happens is the intrinsic value may not change at all, but that extrinsic value with interest rates hits it. And so price on the market of deals go down. That deal may make the exact same amount of money. In fact, it may make more money, but its market value still went down because it had nothing to do with the deal intrinsically. That means you're just buying something and what you get for it is the same. It's just on sale. This is awesome, right? We love that. So we're in that time right now. Things are vastly cheaper, even in assets that are perfectly fine. right? They're not hurt. Now, we saw a slowdown in demand, things like that, but it's stabilized and it was nothing, horrible. All deals or anybody that we see that's really in trouble, it has primarily to do with interest rates or developments and their need to either sell or refinance. If you don't need to sell or refinance, you're probably not in trouble at all. We are moving into this cycle now, though, where we've changed. We went through a inflationary and higher interest rate cycle to now changing to where we're going to reduce interest rates and we're going to get the market to flow again on the real estate side. That's very exciting because that creates a wave of demand, especially on the market side, which will be coming. But it takes time. So when interest rates went up to 8%, owners didn't just drop their price down. No, that took 2 years for owners to finally go, okay, you know what? We'll do it, right? So it's time. So we view that we have a year here that's going to be really good to get deals that are really great, that are producing high, but we're getting at prices that we could have never gotten over the last 5-6 years. I love that. Love that. So I think we're in that phase right now. And we are buying up deals. We want to buy way more. We would buy so much right now. I'm hiring on people because we are on now the opposite side of this market cycle. Markets change. When they change from one cycle to another, it's rough. The last 2 years has been the switch. We've been going from one cycle to another, right? We had a decade straight up. And then we had this huge switch where it's like, these interest rates don't work. This debt load doesn't work. We have to move out from it. The unknown freezes buyers and sellers. This adjustment period is where you get good deals. You can find them, which are good long-term value deals, and you can get them at stellar prices. These are the periods in the cycle that make you. And we're excited about it.
I agree. I didn't know it's true on self-storage as it is on the residential side, but I've been saying the same thing in my reels. This is the window, guys. Here we are. It is this point right now. And I've been saying as of, a year, maybe it was 9 months ago, like you need to be prepared for this window is going to open up. And the window is this little space between crap is happening. I'm changing my words, right? Crap is happening. Bad things, prices are going down. Finally, sellers are getting tired. We're seeing it in the residential. We're seeing it especially in the larger units in residential, but we're still seeing it in the 5 to 50s as well, right? Where they're seeing a softening in price, 20% downturn, but interest rates are starting to go down. That means it's the beginning of the end. We're at the turn. We know we're at the turn. The Fed has declared that we're at the turn. Now we use the fact that the market moves slowly to our advantage. We have this 9-month lag before the market itself is going to catch up to what's happening. Here's your buy box, guys. Go. Time to go. Right?
Great. And we're really excited about that because we can buy underperforming deals anyways that we can turn around and we're getting them on discount. That's a double hit to us. That's like upside on both sides. So it's a huge wealth creation. Where you just went through the opposite side, which can be a wealth destruction for a lot of people. So they bought high, I have to switch, I do this, all of a sudden the value of the asset's down, right? So the other side of the cycle is a really good part. And for storage, we are now a matured asset where we weren't. From 2008 to 2023, we were a teenager. 2008 prior, we were a child, right? Self-storage was. Now, as that matures, we have technology, we have money that's coming in, we have all of these things that are happening to prop up, hold values that have done all this, and that is amazing to see. The last 10 years, though, in self-storage, we will not see a repeat of it. It's not going to happen. That was crazy. That was wild, right? But it does mean, though, that on the opposite side, you have a lot more assets, they're more stable, you can get really good tools, opportunity, and yields that didn't exist prior to that. So we're very, very excited about the next 10 years within self-storage.
That is, I talk about that professionalization of the field. That's what I call it. I don't know, maybe has a better terminology, but that's what I call it. And I saw it in the multifamily market. I bought my first multifamily in like 2002, and I could get a 7 cap in Van Nuys. And if you know multifamily, 7 cap in the LA market is absolutely unheard of today. Because of the professionalization of the market, a mom and pop like me could show up and go, yeah, you know what? I've got $1 million, I want to put down on a multifamily, I can buy that. Right. And there wasn't as many competitors. And now the cap rates are way too small. We have, bad negative amortization on the loans. Like, it doesn't work. It just doesn't work, in my opinion. But now I'm trying to buy back in with positive amortization on my loan versus my cap rate. That's where I am personally. So, but tell me, we talked earlier about the character of the person that you're investing with and the integrity. Tell me about a deal that went wrong and how you made it right, because there should be a little bit of pain in this story because that's the reality of real estate.
Pain. Lots of it. So there's a few things. There's, first of all, that when I look at things that go wrong and problems, there are what I would call expected known issues. I am a value investor, things like that. Expected planned problems. Those are not what obviously we're talking about. We're talking about the big problems that are like, oh no, what did we do? Right? Or what is happening? Now, the first thing that I think of is in real estate, people love to blame the market. Okay. And I get that. I understand that. Normally, though, when a deal goes south, I have not seen a deal that went south and they said, oh, the market, interest rates went up or anything like that, but it was totally avoidable. Like, if you would have had locked in interest rates, if you didn't have to sell it, if you didn't have to refi, you would have been totally fine. So the deal, I always ask, did the deal go south or did the deal maker go south? Very different. And so when I look at our assets and our deals that have gone wrong, I want to look at the ones where, first of all, the deal maker, I made bad decisions, or the deal itself went wrong. And if the deal itself went wrong, was it something I was doing? So I think we had, I want to use something that's soon. First of all, I've never lost a deal. I've never gone bankrupt. We've never had any of those problems or issues. It does not mean deals haven't gone. I have a portfolio of deals, and one of our deal, just like everything that could go wrong is seeming to go wrong. We've had to fix the roof 3 times. We had 3 different engineers and architects that approved it, and then it was still leaking. It's been a mess. I know. It's holy hell, a mess, right? So we're trying to figure out here what to do with it. It was a newly built asset. And so it was done with construction and everything else when we took it over. But then that made it so you couldn't lease out like 2 of the floors, which then hurt cash flow, which kills the deal, everything else. So that has been a mess I haven't had before, right? And so what we've done is we did a few good things where obviously we had locked in. What we did is we changed the way we were doing our sales process, our revenue management. We had it in a portfolio. And so we were able to offset any of those. But then as we stabilized, I had 2 roads that we could look at. Okay, once we get this in, we stabilize it. Is it enough to generate our returns or not? Moving forward, what would returns look like? Or is it one that we should sell and just walk away from it and take the loss, or maybe it's not a loss, right? And so we're trying to understand here what avenue is best to do it. And the route that we're looking at is, although we could probably do it and fix it, fill it up and everything, the debt load and paying it to get to that point or whatnot, we don't think we're going to probably do that. And so that'll be actually the first time that I've ever sold an asset, and we won't lose money. We'll get what we put into it, but not getting a return. Now, it's part of a bigger deal, right? And when I look at this, I was actually so upset about it because I feel like I should have known, I should have done it. And so I obviously made mistakes, and we made mistakes on a whole bunch of stuff. So on the investor side and everything, I did not take fees or anything for the entire year. And so I'm just like, I'm mad about this. Our team's doing the work, everything else. Now it's part of a larger portfolio and package. Other deals that I've done that we've had big mistakes on, or we did mess, we've always really overcame them. It's not that they didn't go wrong, they did. We figured out what went wrong and we moved. That had to do everything with how we were building. We've had ones where you find out halfway through you can't build like that, and we've had to adjust, and we've had to go back, and we've had to reformat, and things that were, this could be really, really bad, right? We've had land that we had to go through and get things taken care of. So there's lots of big things, nothing that ever got close to, tanking us or anything else. But it's impossible to be doing deals and not have something go south. So the first thing I always said is take total responsibility. because no matter what, we should have, it's my responsibility. It just doesn't even matter. Buck stops with me. And then we take accountability for it. We put the money in to fix things, everything else, and we don't take fees. And then we try to make a decision predicated on, once again, this long-term total asset payback period and the total value. Because sometimes it's not worth trying to get a return later on. It's just not. And so that's how we're handling that one today. So that's one of the many problems we've had and dealt with in this, because every time you do, something's going to go wrong. That's just part of it.
Being able to understand responsibility, accountability, pulling back your fees, being able to protect your limited investors, trying to get it to, look, is it really worth doing the long-term hold, or is it really going to be such a great loss of capital in the end result that right now we just want to cut it? We want to cut it where it stands, because now we're at neutral. And if we keep trying to push this down the line, it's just going to get worse, or it's going to get a lot worse before we can even make it better.
Yeah. You're just not going to yield the efforts out of it. And that's something that obviously we're okay with, and we're transparent, and the investors too, they're all okay with it. The other time, I think the other thing that you could lead to, though, as far as big problems or things that would go on, would be the external problems. That is more like interest rates, right? That tends to have to do with like change in equity positions and change in bank loans, right? I've not had to restructure a deal like that, but we've set ourselves up once again so we can't. That also, though, is not necessarily good. So that's why I'm going to lead to the next one. It sounds good, but after 2008, we did a portfolio refinance on our assets. And it was right after there was hardly any debt products out. We got 5% interest rate, which at the time we're like, wow, it'll never be cheaper than this. So we locked it, but we couldn't refinance without huge penalties over that 10-year period of time. Those assets doubled, tripled, quadrupled, 5x'd during that time period. So we had at one time $30 million of equity that I couldn't touch, that we could pull out if we could. That is a huge mistake. And it's not in coordination. It's like, we couldn't, because we had to pay the spread between the interest rate we were at and interest rate went down to 3%. So we were stuck, right? We couldn't get it. So definitely learned that position. That was never had an investor in that or whatnot. But to look back and say, with that $30 million, what we could have built in that time frame, right? That was devastating. So we learned that we always, especially with our model value creation, we cannot have our equity locked up. We have to have the ability to refinance, move and change with market changes. And that is very, very important. So we want to lock in liabilities, but we want flexibility to move with the changes of the market.
Beautiful. All right. I'm going to change this whole thing up for a minute, because I just really feel like people need to know about what your wife and you put together as far as a family retreat. This is one of the few in the business that I am aware of that really integrates what does it mean about family values, your values as a human being, and engaged in real estate as a community. And I thought it was a brilliant idea. And I think your wife was the original seed for it. And I know you pulled in a lot of other people to help you with it. Again, I'm sad I missed it. But I really think that we should just give me a couple moments on what it was, how it was inspired, and what its purpose was.
So a lot of these things that we're all doing, investing, business, it's all done with adults, other adults. We go to conferences and retreats, things like that. And we were really thinking about it. My wife started a school based around financial education. And it's like, the family needs to be involved in this. These are discussions that we need to be having as a family, because our goals, what are we trying to accomplish and what do we learn? So she made a family camp where it's like, once again, it's like going to our conventions or retreat with speakers, everything else, but it was designed around the whole family. We got together, we made goals, there was activities, there was amazing things that we could do to have really in-depth discussions with our family and have fun and build memories in ways that the kids would love. And we did it at a retreat that was, up in the mountains, and there's zip lines, and it was huge. And it was amazing. The kids just loved it. And there was all these crazy activities they got to do. And we got to talk together about our family and what values are important to us, what we've learned from our experience as a family together, what memories we hold and cherish. And it was this really making sure we were all included on our journey as a family together, and that there isn't a separation of simply, oh, dad goes to work and comes back. Right? Well, dad's going to work for a reason. We're trying to build something together. We're investing for the future, for the long term. And this isn't something that you guys shouldn't know or understand about. Obviously, we want our kids to learn this stuff. And we also want to create memories, and we want to bond with them. And that's why we did this family camp, or she did this family camp. And it was awesome. It was 3 days, and it was just absolutely incredible.
Has she picked another date yet? Have you guys picked another date?
So they are doing it up there. I can't remember if the date is finalized or not yet, but you can go to the site, sign up, and it will be next summer. Same thing, same spot. They're absolutely doing it.
Great. What's the name of it? How do people find it?
Yes. So it is called Family Camp. I'm going to get you the actual thing right now. You can go to the foundationsfamilycamp.com. So it's foundationsfamilycamp.com, or you can go to it on Instagram too. You can follow it there. But foundationsfamilycamp.com, and it looks like we just had it for 2024. They're trying to do it before September next year, so in the summer, for everybody to go attend. We had speakers though for the adults. We talked about investing, scaling, family planning, building wealth, all of this for like the adults. Then the kids had their own subjects. We talked about goals. Really, really important. I'm a long-term value-based investor, and I'm a long-term value-based relationship guy too. That's really important.
All right. Now, if people want to invest with you as an LP, because a lot of my listeners are LP investors, how do they get a hold of you so that they can find out more about Cedar Crest Capital and what it is that you're doing and what deals you have?
Yeah, so you can go to cedarcreekcapital.com or look up Cedar Creek Capital, AJ Osborne. It'll be everywhere. It'll pop up everywhere. So you can go there, check out, and you can actually email and sign in, and you can log into our whole portfolio, see the assets that we have, ones that we are buying. We have new opportunities coming up all the time. We're under contract under 2 deals. We have developments. And that's a continual thing. So you can go straight to Cedar Creek Capital and check it out. Look up AJ Osborne Self-Storage, Cedar Creek Capital. You're going to find everything.
Perfect. And I said it wrong. It is Cedar Creek, guys. So listen to AJ. Don't listen to me. I said it wrong. AJ, thank you so much for being on my show. I so appreciate it. I warned AJ I'm going to have to cut him off because I got to go pick up my kid. And family values is one of the things that we share. So Christina Suter, Real Estate Breakthrough. Tune in every 2 weeks for a new show. And you can find me on lots and lots of different podcast platforms, including Amazon TV, Apple TV, and Roku TV. See you guys in 2 weeks.